Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this week's edition of Benchmark, our top story has the latest tourist numbers and they are climbing. Then in our feature segment, we turn the spotlight on Mahen Thambaya, the Managing Director of Kia Motors Lanka, for his take on the motor industry. And we wrap up this edition with LMD columnist Samantha Amarasinghe, who discusses the nation's economy. That's the lineup for Benchmark this week. Tourism is up, exports and imports are down, and Sri Lanka's balance of trade is in the red. This is the Big Picture Business Program Benchmark, and I'm Savitri Rodrigo. Thank you for joining us. Let's start off with the good news. Tourist numbers gathered momentum during the month of February with a healthy rise of 27% in inbound travellers. And the accumulated arrivals in the first 2 months of this year surpassed 160,000, which represents a 21% increase over the same term in 2011. Sri Lanka's events calendar, which includes numerous trade exports, sports and cultural events and conventions, suggests that the authorities are now reaching out to a multitude of travel segments, which may result in the annual number topping the 1 million mark this year. As is customary, Western Europe dominates the cumulative numbers with the largest share of arrivals, 44%, although there were less visitors from the UK, 16,908, which represents a reduction of 11%. On the other hand, more Germans, up by nearly a quarter to 13,587, have taken the long-haul flight to Sri Lanka this year compared to 2011. Asian nations also account for a substantial share, or 32% of our source markets, with Indian nationals leading the way, 25,957 arrivals in January and February, which is a near 9% increment. Moving on to Sri Lanka's exports. The central bank, in a press statement last week, concedes that Sri Lanka's January exports, around $918 million, declined by 0.6% compared to the same month in 2011. A significant year-on-year decrease, some 19% that is, in tea exports, down by nearly a fifth to just under $105 million due to geopolitical uncertainties in major tea importing destinations, was more or less offset by higher textile and garment orders, up 1.6% to $367 million, and contributions from other sectors. Industrial exports, which account for almost 80% of total exports, grew by 3.3% in January. Likewise, rubber products witnessed higher exports, up by 20+% to $78 million. As for the future, the substantial devaluation of the Sri Lankan rupee could produce higher numbers for the country's exports. Meanwhile, the year-on-year growth in imports in January tapered off to 20% compared to nearly 18% in November and 31% in December last year. A reduction in import expenditure on consumer goods was also recorded, with food and beverages falling by more than 4% to $125 million because of increased duty rates and the introduction of a special commodity levy, SCL, on new categories, according to the central bank. However, imports of investment and intermediate goods followed the pattern of old, with rises of 72% and 9% respectively. Petroleum imports increased by almost 20% to $484 million due to rising geopolitical tension, the bank explains. Machinery and equipment imports, totaling $250 million, reflect a year-on-year uplift of 60%. And finally, the central bank's latest statistics reveal that Sri Lanka's balance of trade is in the red and nearing the $1 billion mark. In January, the trade deficit widened by a near 50% year-on-year to a mammoth $966 million on the back of marginally lower exports and the ongoing expansion in imports. Earnings from tourism and workers' remittances, however, continue to grow at a healthy rate of 20 to 25% to $88 million and $473 million respectively. Meanwhile, our gross official reserves, excluding Asian Clearing Union balances, stood at $5,806 million on the 31st of January, which represents a reduction from the $5,958 million at the end of December. That's just 3.4 months imports compared to 3.5 at 31st December. Spotlight is up next. That's after this short break.